Hello and welcome back to another episode of Liam Gives His Unsolicited Opinions about a Nintendo Direct that took place multiple days ago. A few weeks ago, Nintendo did a special Direct exclusively about Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and now on the 14th of September, they've done a proper big boy Direct. I thought this Direct was completely fine. To be completely honest with you, there wasn't a huge amount in this particular showcase that appealed to me. There have been Directs before in the past where every single reveal felt tailor-made just for me, like Nintendo themselves were coming into my house, tucking me into bed and giving me a lovely little content kiss on the forehead before I drifted off into my game-playing slumber. And of course, if I'm getting Directs that are exclusively for me, there are going to be Directs that are not for me. This Direct was not entirely for me, with the exception of a couple of things. So with that in mind, this roundup video is going to be a little bit different to the usual ones I used to make, so you'll see as we get a little bit deeper into it. However, I think the most interesting thing about this Direct is that if you watch this showcase, it is so clear that Nintendo are gearing up for their next generation system. If you haven't heard about this, a couple of reports came out week before last that claimed that Nintendo showed off the Switch's successor to a select group of people at Gamescom. This Switch 2 had a couple of cool features. It uses Nvidia's DLSS technology, which allows games to run at a faster frame rate by using AI upscaling to make the image quality better. I think that's how DLSS works. I work at a PC gaming website. I should know that. Reportedly, this new handheld can do things like run The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at 4K resolution, 60 frames a second. So that's quite exciting. If those reports are true, which, to be honest, I have no reason to believe they're not, they have this new handheld that is waiting in the wings that's going to be announced at some point, presumably in the very near future. Would not be surprised if that console launches next year. I don't want to contribute to the whole, baseless speculation industry, but I'm going to slightly. The Switch was revealed in October 2016, and there was a Direct in September 2016. So that's all I'm saying. I'm just putting that out there. So with all this in mind, it does not surprise me that in this Direct we had a lot of big remakes, remasters, original titles that appeal to niche audiences. Titles like that Peach game, Princess Peach Showtime, I want to say, which looked a lot to me like those Yoshi games. That's a game for kids, and that's great. Kids are going to love that. It ain't for me. I'm a 31-year-old. Not everything has to be for me, as much as some Nintendo fans would disagree with that statement. If you recall back to 2016-17, when the Switch was first revealed, Nintendo Directs had a very similar flavour to this one. The 3DS was getting games like Samus Returns and Luigi's Mansion, like these big remakes that felt like safer bets for Nintendo. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is still an incredible, presumably last hurrah for the system. There are so many amazing games coming out, and also I imagine all of these games will hopefully work on the Switch too, and Nintendo won't make me buy Tears of the Kingdom again, because God help me, I'm an idiot and I probably will do that. So yeah, an interesting Direct from a broader perspective, because it is very, very clear that they are going to sunset this console at some point, although some of these games are set to launch in summer 2024, so that crossover really implies to me that some of these games are going to work on that successor, or maybe that's wishful thinking. I really don't know. Just please, Nintendo, make that next handheld backwards compatible. Just please. Some honourable mentions before I dive into my 5 favourite things from the show. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD looks neat. I really liked that game back on the 3DS. It's cool it's getting a new lease of life on the Switch. They've cleaned it up a little bit. I think it looks quite nice. Luigi's Mansion 2 was interesting because it was a way more bite-sized adventure compared to the original game. You had all these different mansions and I think you did missions, is that right? You would do these little missions that only lasted 10-15 minutes, so it made it really easy to just pick up and play. I think without the 3D effect, the game might lose a little bit of depth, but there was something really nice about peering into these rooms like they were tiny little 3-dimensional dioramas. So still, it's nice that game is being re-released. I'm glad that Nintendo are continuing to save certain games from the 3DS by bringing them to the Switch. Please release the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask remasters, Nintendo. please. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown continues to look like a really, really cool Metroidvania. I'm a huge Prince of Persia fan. I think this looks like a brilliant new direction for the series. I adored Metroid Dread. I really like Prince of Persia. This looks like they're mashing the two things together. Give me that immediately. Another Chord Recollection. Now, I do not like Another Chord. I thought they were really dull on the Nintendo DS. But if you're excited for this collection, I wish you all the best. Again, it's just nice to see Nintendo bringing back these older titles that have been lost to time and giving them a new lease of life. The fact they're even making this is bonkers. I would never have put any amount of money on this being a thing Nintendo would resurrect, but God love them. It's nice to see it coming back. I owned Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance, and I have like vague memories of it being quite good. I remember playing it a lot when my mum was studying at college when I was like a young teen and sitting in the waiting area while she did her course playing this game on the GBA, and it was okay. And I think this is a remake. Maybe I missed them saying this and I've done no research before this video to clarify anything. Excited to potentially play that game again, ? I'm not buying it for full price. And a lot of Nintendo heads are going to shout at me for this being an honorable mention rather than in my top 5, but like, I'm very happy to see F-Zero 99 as a thing. I personally don't like the original F-Zero. It makes me feel a bit motion sick. But that's a series I've always enjoyed from afar, and it's very nice to see that Nintendo are doing something with it. It's a good candidate for their 99 series. I'm really pleased to see that they're continuing to do cool things with that idea, that it didn't just end with Tetris 99. From what I've seen, people are really enjoying this. I've seen a lot of my F-Zero loving pals on Twitter say that this is a really neat introduction to the series, so if I had Switch Online, I'd probably be trying it out. But I don't, because that's expensive. Is this an indication that Nintendo will do something with the franchise after this? Maybe. Who knows? I mean, they're bringing back Another Chord, so, I mean, yeah, I would probably put some money on F-Zero making some kind of comeback in the next few years. Just give it to the Fast RMX devs. I don't know why they just haven't done that already. Right, let's dive into something resembling a list. Super Mario RPG continues to look like a really fun remake of that original game. I've never played Super Mario RPG. It's quite an elusive title to me because it never actually came out in PAL regions back in the day. It eventually came to the Wii Virtual Console, I want to say, and there are a couple of ways you can play that now, but I just never have. I just never got round to playing that game. I've heard nothing but good things though, and I'm excited to finally dive in. It looks really lovely. I really like the cleanup job they've done on this. It's a very pleasant looking thing. One of my only issues with it is that it does look a bit too clean. This is a trap that Nintendo can sometimes fall into. They sometimes make these remakes or these new releases that just lack a bit of bite. It's one of the reasons why I think Super Mario Wonder looks so lovely, is that that game has a bit of texture to it. It has a bit of quirkiness. It leans into the weirder and rougher edges of that art style and that quirkiness. And I do think something is being lost with this remake ever so slightly by cleaning up the visuals so much. You lose a bit of that crunchiness that made the SNES visuals look so textured and interesting. But you know, it's a remake, it's not a remaster. They are taking a fresh approach with this, and I wish them all the best. I'm really happy to see that they're adding in a couple of quality of life features. This is, after all, a 30-year-old RPG. I think it is probably quite telling that they're adding the ability to damage multiple enemies at once now. They have an opportunity here to rebalance it, to make it more appealing to new players. I'm glad they're doing that. And it's just nice seeing Nintendo revisit these older RPGs. We'll discuss that a little bit later. Next up, we have WarioWare Move It. Now, I am a huge WarioWare fan. I have been for as long as I can remember. I think the first one I ever played was the GameCube re-release of the GBA title, and that game became a permanent fixture of my gaming rotation at that point in time. I used to spend countless hours with pals playing the Turtle minigame, just that game rules. And I was a huge fan of WarioWare Get It Together from 2021. In fact, I would argue that game was one of the best games of that year. And yes, I am getting around to finally making that video at some point. This is a return to the more classic WarioWare style of minigames. Obviously, Get It Together had this new and I thought very successful way of interacting with the games where the characters were physically part of the scene and each one had a different way of interacting with it and there was multiple solutions to each minigame. I'd love to see them revisit that concept again, to be honest. But this goes back to the classic WarioWare style of minigame where you just use one input to complete an action. Except this is a sequel to WarioWare Smooth Moves, the Wii game, which means that this relies on the motion control capabilities of the Switch's Joy-Cons. The minigames are split up into different poses, so you have to hold the controllers in certain ways to then make a movement and interact with them. There is a shove it up your ass pose, which really makes me laugh. WarioWare Smooth Moves was absolutely delightful. There were some really inventive minigames there, and I really hope that the multiplayer modes are a little bit more substantial in this one. This trailer implies that they are going to be more substantial, that you're going to be able to do true multiplayer where multiple people are playing minigames at the same time. This was something that was kind of lacking from Get It Together, other than the co-op mode, which was fantastic and probably the best part of that game is playing it with a pal. The multiplayer, like competitive modes, were a bit lacking. So yeah, hopefully, what's it called? Move It. Smooth Moves 2 has more longevity thanks to its multiplayer suite. Okay, Tomb Raider 1 to 3 remastered starring Lara Croft. Now, I think the original Tomb Raider games have aged terribly, and you couldn't pay me to play these remasters. So you might be thinking, why is it on your list? Good question. Let me try and justify it to you, because I don't know if I can justify it to myself. Now, I was never even a huge fan of these games as a kid, so I don't really have the nostalgia factor for these games either. Like, I'm not going to play these games, but I have a huge amount of respect for them and also for remasters of this style. I love that you can toggle between two completely different art styles, the original looks of the game and also this slightly modernized version that might make it a little bit more palatable for modern gamers, but still retains the rigid geometry that is so integral to the mechanics and the readability of those original games. I just want to see more of these. Like, these 3 games are quite hard to play on modern systems, so bringing them back in this way and giving them like delicate touch-ups, like how Night Dive do to their remasters. I've just finished playing the Quake 2 remaster with a friend. Hi, Stephen. And the way that they approach remasters by basically just shipping the original version of the game, but with just a couple of quality of life features included that you can toggle off at any point, is just a really respectful way of making these games more accessible. So yeah, really happy to see that these are a thing. And I also love this version of Lara. I absolutely adored the Tomb Raider Anniversary remake of the original game. Whatever Embracer do with the Lara Croft license, I just hope it's in this style. And yeah, really excited to see what Crystal Dynamics do next. Happy to see that these things are coming out, even if I will not be playing them. Unicorn Overlord. What is this game? Well, it's by Vanillaware, who recently released 13 Sentinels, which everyone says I should play and I will get around to eventually. And they also made Dragon's Crown, which you might remember as the Witch Boob game. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that this game is very similar to a series called Ogre Battle, or maybe that's one game, I'm not sure. Never played it, but I really like how this seems to resemble Total War in the sense that you wander around this very large open map and get involved in these smaller skirmishes where it's you versus a couple of other soldiers or enemy types. It's like a close quarters tactics game. I can't quite get a sense of how it controls, but I really like the idea that you're having these tiny little battles that are smaller than Fire Emblem, but have the stakes of a Total War on a grander, wider world scale, and it just looks really cool. Like, I absolutely love Vanillaware's visual style. I like that they're applying this to a different genre. Also, some of the best looking food I've seen in a game in a while, so yes please. When's it out? I think if I did this days after the actual direct, I'd do a bit of bloody research. March 8th, 2024. Unicorn Overlord. Incredible name, unhinged logo. Love everything about it. And finally, the big one, the one that everyone is excited for, Paper Mario, the Thousand-Year Door, the GameCube RPG, is finally getting not only a re-release, which would have been more than enough, it's getting a full-blown remake, using presumably the same engine as the previous Paper Mario game, Origami King, which looked absolutely stunning, and this looks just as beautiful. I am so excited to see this coming back. I owned this on GameCube and I sold it like a moron, and now it is so expensive to buy on that platform, and all I've wanted is a way to play this legitimately, and now we finally have it. It's a great game. It's an amazing RPG. It has a fantastic battle system. It has this incredible cast of goofy characters, really fun locations to explore, and like quite a compelling central narrative that's a little bit edgier than you'd expect from a Mario game, but still like accessible and child-friendly enough that I enjoyed it when I was like 13 or whenever it first came out. The battle system in particular is so much fun. It's quite similar to Super Mario RPG in the sense that you have to do like timed button presses to use different moves. Paper Mario as a series sort of went in a different direction after this game. It became like its own thing that feels very toothless to me. This particular type of battle system was then picked up by the Super Mario Bros. RPG series, which I'd love to see make a comeback as well. But it originated here, and there's a reason why people always say that this is the best Paper Mario game and also the best Mario RPG. It's because it feels so complete, and it was almost so good that Nintendo just didn't know what to do with the series after this game. Paper Mario was never better than it was here. And again, to go back to the point I made at the start of the video, I just don't think Nintendo would be remaking this game if they weren't buying time and treading water before they released their next console. Like, Nintendo did not have to make this, and the fact that they are is, quite telling. We'll throw a bone to our hardcore fans while we work on whatever comes next for this next system. But very, very happy to see this. This was enough for me. Personally, this made the whole Direct worth it. And yeah, cannot wait to play Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, a game I very much like. And you might too, if you've never played it. So yeah, that's it. That was the Direct. Like I say, it wasn't exactly for me, but that's fine. While we're here, let me quickly go over the Sony State of Play that was on the same night, because honestly, there was very little announced in that one as well. Big news for me, Resident Evil 4 is finally getting the Separate Ways DLC that has been rumoured for a while. You get to play as Ada, as she does her own little mission around the village. It's out like in a few days' time, so I'm very excited to play that. Also, Resi 4 VR looks amazing, but it's exclusive to PSVR 2, which now means that both Resident Evil 4 VR and Resident Evil Village VR is exclusive to that system. I cannot justify buying a PlayStation VR 2, but Capcom are making it really hard for me to not make a very poor financial decision. I shouldn't do that. I should not buy that headset, but like, I really want to play those games. And Spider-Man 2 continues to look, really good. It's got a map twice the size of Spider-Man. Honestly, it looks like you'll be doing basically the same things you were doing in those original two games, and like, I'm fine with that. I'll spend another very happy 35 hours with that game and walk away very satisfied. Insomniac know how to do a good Spider-Man game. Why do Nintendo refer to their games as, like, the Super Mario RPG game? Why are they the only company that do that? I find it very weird. Thank you for watching. This has been another video where I talk about a Nintendo Direct. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any opinions, let me know. Put them in the comments. Also, YouTube's doing this really weird thing where I seem to be getting capped at like 800 views. So my chart will be like, whoa, this video is really good. And then it'll just like flatline around that mark. So if you could like and subscribe, that'd be really good. This channel's been around for so long. Maybe there's just like an old copyright strike hiding in the back end somewhere. Like, it's fine. It is what it is. So yeah, thank you, and I'll be back. Maybe not soon, but at some point. Bye!